Quick disclaimer, information in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to be treated as medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare team before making changes to your diet, lifestyle, supplementation, or medication.
Did you know that having type 2 diabetes puts you at a 50 to 150% increased risk of getting type 3 diabetes? What is type 3 diabetes, you may ask? That's what we're exploring together today.
Welcome to Type 2 Diabetes Talk, the place where we chat about what really works to treat type 2 diabetes and prediabetes naturally with nutrition and lifestyle. If you're looking to optimize blood sugar and A1C, lose weight, reduce medications, and improve your overall health, this is the place to be. Now, here's your host, type 2 diabetes nutrition specialist, Dr. Jetta.
Hello, wonderful people. You've no doubt heard of type 1 diabetes and, of course, prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. But have you ever heard of type 3 diabetes? Many people haven't, and it's the topic of today's chat. When I first came across this way back in 2015, it was incredibly interesting then, especially with the shocking statistic that was quoted by researchers back then that living with type 2 diabetes puts you at a 50 to 150% risk of getting type 3 diabetes. A recent research review on this topic came into my radar, so I thought I'd share all of this information with you. In today's episode, we're going to unpack what type 3 diabetes actually means, why some researchers use this term, and why it's important to know about for prevention. Let's explore some of the science and what actions we can take to lower risk as well. First, let's just recap an important point about prediabetes and type 2 diabetes because it really helps explain where researchers think type 3 diabetes fits in. Prediabetes and type 2 diabetes are conditions driven by insulin resistance. That means the body's cells don't respond properly to insulin, the hormone that allows glucose to move from the blood into the cells to be used for energy or to be stored. We've spoken in detail about this in episodes 26 and 70 and throughout many of other podcasts as well. So here's the thing. When insulin resistance develops, the pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin to try and keep blood sugar under control, which can worsen insulin resistance and become a repetitive cycle, especially if nothing is done about this. And this underlying issue of insulin resistance, this is the very interesting area that researchers have explored. So let's start with where this term even comes from, type 3 diabetes. Researchers noticed that people with type 2 diabetes had a much higher risk of developing dementia, particularly Alzheimer's disease. In fact, studies show that increased risk is around 50 to 60% higher compared to people without diabetes, and the prevalence of dementia in people over 75 living with diabetes is around 24%. So these prominent connections made scientists curious, and when they began looking closely at what was happening inside the brain, they found something very familiar: insulin resistance. The brain is a hungry organ. It uses around 20% of the body's energy, and glucose is its main fuel. But glucose can't get into cells without insulin working properly. When insulin signaling in the brain breaks down, neurons, which are the brain's nerve cells, don't get the fuel they need. Over time, this leads to problems with memory, thinking, and eventually the structural changes that we see in Alzheimer's disease like amyloid plaques and tau tangles. So the idea of type 3 diabetes is that Alzheimer's may, at least in part, be a form of diabetes in the brain where insulin resistance and disrupted glucose metabolism drive the disease process. Not the only cause, but a major player. Researchers propose that once insulin resistance takes hold in the brain, several damaging processes begin to unfold. First, the brain's natural cleanup crew, it struggles. Now, insulin normally helps regulate an enzyme that breaks down both insulin itself and amyloid beta, the sticky protein that forms those plaques. In insulin resistance, people often have high insulin levels. The pancreas releases more and more insulin to try to get glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cells. But when insulin levels are chronically high, this cleanup enzyme in the brain gets overwhelmed, spending its time on insulin and leaving amyloid beta to accumulate. Amyloid plaques block the signals between neurons, and they also release beta amyloid, a toxin that injures neurons in the brain. As a consequence, regions of the brain slowly begin to decline. So over years, these plaques can interfere with brain signalling and damage surrounding tissue. Second, there's the problem of tau tangles. Tau, and I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, it could be tau, or to me it sounds like tau. So tau is a structural protein inside neurons, kind of like scaffolding. And in type 3 diabetes, insulin resistance triggers enzymes that cause tau to become twisted and tangled. And these tangles block the cell's transport system and eventually lead to cell death. Then comes inflammation. The brain's immune cells, called microglia, get switched on and stay on. Instead of protecting the brain, they pump out inflammatory chemicals that worsen the damage. At the same time, oxidative stress, which is basically like rusting at a cellular level, it adds to the injury that's happening in the brain. And underpinning all of this are mitochondria, the cell's power plants. In insulin resistance, mitochondria become less efficient, producing less energy and more free radicals. That makes it harder for neurons to survive. So rather than one single cause, researchers propose type 3 diabetes is a web of interlinked problems: plaques, tangles, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and cellular energy failure. But at the very centre of this web is insulin resistance. It's that breakdown in insulin signalling that sparks the cascade, tipping the brain into an energy crisis and setting the stage for all the other damage we see in Alzheimer's disease. While all this may sound concerning, here's the important thing. This doesn't just happen overnight. These changes start decades before symptoms show up, which means what you do earlier in your life and at any stage actually can make a huge difference to your brain health later in life. And even more important, this emphasises why it's so important to be proactive and regulate your blood sugar and optimise your diabetes health to reduce your risk of type 3 diabetes.
It's time to leave all the noise and confusion behind and get proven, practical solutions that really work. Understand your diabetes and exactly what to eat to keep your blood sugar stable, lose weight, and reduce medications. All this and more is possible with Dr. Jetta's scientifically proven T2 diet program. Take charge of your diabetes health and join the program today. Visit type2diabetestalk.com/programs.
While scientists are still debating whether Alzheimer's should officially be called type 3 diabetes, what's clear is that insulin resistance is a major trigger for the cascade of brain changes we just talked about. Insulin resistance is something we can influence. And let's not forget that at the centre of all this is dysregulated glucose. When blood sugar runs too high for too long, as it can in prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, it doesn't just affect your pancreas or your circulation, it can also affect your brain. Chronically high glucose fuels that oxidative stress, forms damaging molecules called advanced glycation end products, drives even more insulin resistance, and that combination sets the stage for the brain's energy crisis, plaque buildup, and inflammation. That's what the research shows us. And this is why prevention is so incredibly powerful. Alzheimer's and other dementias don't appear out of nowhere. The changes in the brain begin decades before the first memory lapses show up, and we already know from type 2 diabetes research that keeping glucose stable, improving insulin sensitivity, lowering inflammation, and maintaining healthy weight all reduce the risk of complications. All those same actions also help to protect the brain. So rather than waiting for a cure, prevention is our strongest tool. By being proactive in stabilising blood sugar and supporting insulin function now, no matter where you're at in your diagnosis, you're not just protecting your body from diabetes complications, you're also investing in your long-term memory, focus, and independence. And those things are very important to all of us. So if prevention really does start with stabilising blood sugar and improving insulin sensitivity, what does that look like in everyday eating? Well, it comes down to many fundamentals that we often talk about here on the podcast. The nutrition strategies that make a big difference for diabetes also have a big impact on brain health. Cutting out or cutting down on added sugars and the refined carbs found in many processed foods. These are the biggest drivers of blood sugar spikes and insulin resistance. Every time your blood sugar shoots up, it stresses the brain as well as the body. Think of it like a roller coaster ride, the energy ups and downs. These become damaging over time to cells throughout your body and to the brain. So keeping those spikes lower helps your brain get a steady supply of energy rather than a chaotic one. Something so interesting, did you know that the brain is made up of about 60% fat? So it makes sense that it thrives on quality fats. Science shows us that the fats that help reduce inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity and support cell membranes are those rich in monounsaturated fat and omega-3s. So we're talking lots of olive oil, the benefits of which we covered in episode 14, the deliciously creamy avocado, along with nuts and seeds, and omega-3 rich fish like salmon or seeds like chia and flax. Prioritising protein, which we frequently talk about, and that's because it's so important to help keep blood sugar steady and preserve muscle mass, which are both vital factors for insulin sensitivity. Good protein at each and every meal, whether that's eggs, fish, chicken, Greek yogurt or plant-based options like tofu, gives your brain the amino acids it needs for neurotransmitters, the chemicals that keep you thinking clearly. Eat lots of vegetables, lots of them, in all different colours, and that's because they provide antioxidant power, polyphenol power, and certainly lots of leafy green veggies. Berries and nuts are also excellent sources of antioxidants and polyphenols with potential neuroprotective effects. So overall, there's not one single nutrient that prevents or treats the condition, but what we do know is that it's the quality of your overall nutrition plan that matters most, and that's why we discuss that a lot throughout the podcast. There's also one other very important aspect of focus linked to better brain health, but before we go into that, let's hear a testimonial from one of our members.
Cheryl said, "My health has improved dramatically. I now am taking fewer medications and maintaining an A1C of 5.8. Every time I look for specific information, I am pleased and informed to find it. Keep up what you do. You have earned my trust."
I want to touch on one area of research that's been emerging for some time, the gut-brain connection. We often think about Alzheimer's or type 3 diabetes as purely a brain issue, but a growing number of studies are showing that the health of our gut microbiome, that community of trillions of bacteria living in the digestive tract, may play a role in how our brain ages and be linked directly to our brain health. That's absolutely crazy to imagine, right? How can these bacteria in our gut have anything to do with our brain, any impact on our brain? Well, the gut and the brain are in constant communication through what's called the gut-brain axis. When the gut microbiome is healthy and diverse, it produces beneficial compounds like short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation and support brain health. But when the microbiome is out of balance, what researchers call dysbiosis, that can trigger systemic inflammation, cellular inflammation, and even affect insulin resistance, both of which feed into the processes we see in type 3 diabetes and Alzheimer's. Several recent reviews have highlighted this link, and we're seeing this connection between our gut and many aspects of our health appear again and again. And this emphasises again why the quality of your overall nutrition plan really, really matters. Eating lots of vegetables, leafy greens, nuts and seeds, small amounts of legumes and beans, these all nurture a healthier gut microbiome. Growing more of those beneficial type and reducing the bad bacteria causing havoc. And of course, limiting the sugar and refined carbs and processed foods. Not only does all of this support better blood sugar control, it improves the gut microbiome. And in turn, emerging evidence tells us this will also help protect against cognitive decline and dementia risk. So isn't that just fantastic? Quite simply, nutrition is so powerful. Probiotic supplements are also being studied, but the strongest evidence right now points to real foods and a quality nutrition plan as being your best form of defense. Now, this is great news, of course, as that's exactly what we chat about a lot on the podcast and what we help our members do each and every day. Discover a nutrient-dense eating plan that feels natural and sustainable for them long term. So before we finish up, it's important to acknowledge that not everyone agrees with the term type 3 diabetes. Alzheimer's disease is certainly complex. Genetics play a role, vascular health, toxins, head injuries, and lifestyle factors can all add to the picture. So while insulin resistance and dysregulated glucose are very strong contributors, they're not the only ones. Some researchers worry that calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes oversimplifies a very complicated disease. That said, the evidence linking blood sugar problems and brain health is too strong to ignore. Insulin resistance may not explain everything, but it appears to be a major trigger, one that we actually can do something about. And that's where the prevention message becomes so powerful. Looking into the future, this area of research is only growing. We're seeing more focus on nutrition patterns, gut microbiome research, and lifestyle factors that support both metabolic health and brain health. There's also ongoing investigation into medications and novel therapies, but for now, the most effective tools we have are the daily choices around food, activity, stress, sleep, lifestyle, etc. So the debate, around type 3 diabetes, it's healthy, and science, it is still evolving. But one thing is clear, what's good for your blood sugar is good for your brain. By lowering those daily blood sugar spikes, achieving and maintaining healthy A1C levels, and focusing on eating nutrient-dense foods and a quality nutrition plan, you're not just protecting yourself from type 2 diabetes complications, you're also helping to safeguard your memory, your independence, and your quality of life as you age. For all of us, no matter where we are, prevention starts now, and we can improve our health no matter where we are. Every balanced meal, every walk, every good night's sleep, they're all investments in our brain's future too. So keep that in mind with each positive step you take forward. I hope you enjoyed learning more about type 3 diabetes, and thanks so much for tuning in today. Dr. Jetta, over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to Type 2 Diabetes Talk. Please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. And for episode replays, episode notes, and more, visit type2diabetestalk.com. New episodes are available Tuesdays, 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time, or your time zone equivalent. Thanks again. We're truly grateful to be a part of your life and help make a real difference.